for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this hour. We joined a little later in the program by Doreen Hannes. She joins us every Friday morning. Doreen, as you know, is the creator and purveyor of truthfarmer.com, perhaps one of the best sites out there for agricultural news, food quality news, and all kinds of information that is critical to our lives, our agriculture, our property rights. And she is also a major contributor to the prcnews.org. prcnews.org is the Property Rights Coalition website, their official site. I strongly encourage you to visit those websites and get yourself edumacated. I want to talk this morning before Doreen joins us about our own dear trader, our own personal trader, Roy Blunt. He is defending the Monsanto Protection Act, and I don't know how you defend the indefensible, but apparently he believes that you can. The Senate Republicans objected on Thursday to an attempt to repeal this controversial provision. Now, this thing has been kind of informally dubbed the Monsanto Protection Act. Actually, their official term for it, I think, is the right to farm or some nonsensical. You know, it's whatever it is. It's the exact opposite of the reality of it, right? Typical government doublespeak. So anyway, the provision was slipped into a law earlier this year, and it was done quietly and it was done secretly, and they shoved it in there. Blunt was the sponsor. Of course, he's virtually on the payroll at Monsanto. During the debate on the Farm Bill on Thursday, Jeff Merkley, he's from Oregon, he offered an amendment that would repeal the measure. But the Senate Republicans, led by Roy Blunt, blocked it. Now, for the record, if you haven't heard me say it before, I'm going to say it again. The Republicans and the Democrats are absolutely no different. In fact, the Republicans are probably more responsible for the theft of your individual and personal rights than even the Democrats are. They're ideologists who believe that, quite honestly, the only thing that really matters is that they choose how you should live. However, the Republicans actually enforce it. And here is the problem. The Monsanto Protection Act basically states that even if Monsanto's genetically modified seeds prove to be unsafe, and they have been shown to be, by the way, most of Europe is passing anti-GMO legislation, they can be planted and harvested anyway, regardless of any judicial order, and no legislative initiative can be made against them. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have the wherewithal or the ability in the United States of America to bypass congressional oversight or legislative initiative or the law. I don't care who you are, whether you're the president, whether you're the DOJ head, whether you're the IRS, whether you are Monsanto. How did Monsanto become so powerful that they have the ability to get Congress to give them a free pass that prohibits legislation from either legislation or the judicial system from being able to prohibit them from injecting poison into the food supply? I mean, this makes this whole case makes the occasional terrorist attack in the United States look like Cub Scout events. Yeah, you heard me. It makes terrorism look like Cub Scout events. You know why? Because the food supply is being tainted and poisoned by scum like Monsanto, who have other scum like Roy Blunt on the payroll. Oh, and by the way, let's not leave Jason Smith out of this mix. Roy Blunt made sure that he funneled $5,000 worth of Monsanto's money into Jason Smith's campaign. Yeah, you heard me right. You don't like that? Tough. Find somebody else to listen to. The simple truth is, if you don't like to hear the truth, that's on you. But it doesn't change the facts. You may not like the facts, but they are what they are. This is a betrayal of the representatives or the representation of the states. You know, let's understand the difference in the roles between the Senate and the House of Representatives first and foremost, so you understand exactly what these senators did. You see, the way the Constitution was designed, before the 17th Amendment was passed, by the way, was that the people individually were represented by the representatives in the House, because you could get to them, they were relatively close. You had an opportunity to communicate more directly with them. They served a smaller geographic footprint. And you would have an opportunity to get to your House member and say, hey, this is what I want. This is what I expect you to do. The Senate, on the other hand, was designed and geared to represent the state itself as one of the 50 entities that comprised and designed and geared and provided for the federal government. So, in other words, the federal government, being a creation of the states, had a way to represent themselves in how the federal government dealt with its rights and responsibilities. Or roles and responsibilities, I should say, because the federal government has no rights, not unless we delegate them. So then in the 17th Amendment's passage, they basically stripped away the right of state legislatures to appoint senators. See, senators were never elected by the people until the 17th Amendment. They were appointed by the state legislature because, again, remember, their role, as constitutionally envisioned, is for them to represent not the people, the state. This way, the people had representation through the representatives in the House. The state had representation as one of the controlling 50 entities that owns, created, and birthed the federal government. So they had input into what the federal government could do that was in the best interest of that state. By the passage of the 17th Amendment, what happened was the state legislature lost the ability to control a federal senator, because now the federal senator is elected by the people in a general election. So when the legislature disapproves of what the senator does, he turns around and gives him the finger, because he's not obligated to do what the state wants anymore. So now we have a duplication, just like everything else in federal government, of representation. We have a duplication between the House and the Senate. There's no difference between the two, except that the senator is even less likely to do what you want and more likely to be on the take. And the the state has lost all representation in front of the federal government. All. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, we have such massive overreach. Because senators like Roy Blunt no longer represent the state of Missouri. In fact, they no longer represent the people individually within the state either. What they represent is the special interests who control, buy, and sell their votes in this nation. It's as simple as that. That's all it is. The senators these days are exclusively the property of special interests and corporations. They own them. They fund them to get back into office again, to rob you and strip you of your rights, and to benefit those corporations with the legislation that they promote and pass. The Monsanto Act was created, designed, written, and handed to Roy Blunt complete. All he had to do was slip it in, and he did his job. He did the job he got paid for. Now he's trying to defend it. He's trying to defend the indefensible. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what you would call treason. When you have betrayed your oath, that is called treason. They don't just take an oath to the country. They take an oath to represent the people. We'll be back in just a moment.
Even with all of this going on, the beach is closer than you think. Pacific Beach Tanning and Fitness is open, and now's the time to take advantage of their construction special. Pacific Beach is offering 20% off all tanning packages, gym memberships, and lotions. There's plenty of parking in the back, so don't let a little street construction keep you from the beach. Pacific Beach Tanning and Fitness, 110 Trish Knight Street in West Plains.
The Battery Station in West Plains is your headquarters for getting and being prepared. Natural disasters, civil unrest, personal and family protection, long-term sustenance, and most importantly, peace of mind. Berkey bottles and home-sized water purification systems, survival food, MREs, freeze-dried food, survival knives, lanterns, ammunition, military sleep system, and of course, batteries of all shapes and sizes. Take charge of your own survival and security. The Battery Station, 303 Washington in West Plains, 417-257-7799 or batterystation.com.
You see, now Blunt, and McCaskill for that matter, have become lobbyists. But they're not lobbying for the state of Missouri. They're not lobbying for the residents and the voters in Missouri. They're lobbyists of the federal government on behalf of their corporate sponsors. Ladies and gentlemen, if your role is to represent someone or something, and you work against the best interests, and you violate your commitment, your fiduciary oath to represent that party, that is betrayal, a.k.a. treason. So let's understand something. Let's just clarify this for the record, and then we're going to bring Doreen with us. If I said to you, I'm going to represent you as an attorney in your case, and you came to me and said, all right, here's the facts, here's what happened, and you hand me evidence that proves your guilt or innocence in this case, and then I turn around and I take all of your information and I share it with the prosecutor who's prosecuting you, and I'm not allowed to do that. In other words, I want to save my job. My commitment to you is that I'm going to represent you and try to help you win this case. But if I work against the winning of the case willfully, and I do it with full knowledge that what I'm doing is I'm working against the client who's actually paying me, I've committed what? Spell it for yourself. Treason. Treason is not just limited to government. You can be treasonous against your client. You can be treasonous against your company. You can be treasonous against yourself. You can be treasonous against your family. You use the word treason too much. No, you don't use it enough. And that's the truth. This is a betrayal. And your Republicans are responsible for it. So mark my words. The next time you think, well, I should vote Republican, you're just playing into the same old saga that you have played into over and over and over again. And for the last 150 years, we've had no choice but except for Republican and Democrat. June 4th is around the corner. There's an election coming up for our House of Representatives member. You got 4 people running. 2 of them are the same old parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. There's 2 alternates. One is the Constitution Party, represented by Doug Enyart, and the other is the Libertarian Party, and that's represented by Bill Slants. Now, I've spoken with Enyart, and I've had Slants on the radio program as well. I'll have Enyart back on this coming week. I want to know that those guys are going to get elected in. You know why? because it'll be the first time in 150 years that any Libertarian or Constitutional Party member, in fact, for the Constitution Party, it'll be the first time ever in American history that they've been put into power. Good morning, Doreen.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
And on that cheery note.
On that cheery note, yes, we have the duopoly in position.
Holy smoke, huh?
Yeah, it's the same coin. And, there are some differences in the individuals. That's the thing. But when you're talking about partisan politics, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or Democrat. It's all against the individual.
Well, I want to know who's going to run against Blunt in 2016, because this piece of trash has got to go. We got to take this trash out and kick it to the street like you would spoiled chicken leavings or rotten hamburger.
And then there's McCaskill. In my estimation, they both got to go.
Yeah, but she doesn't come up for election in 2016.
Right.
She's good till 2018. So
Frightening,
this guy's
it?
got to be tackled right away. The problem is that the party is going to throw a ton of money at anybody who goes against them.
Well, yes, and that is always the problem. And I happen to work on State Senator Chuck Ferguson's bid for the primary nomination against Blunt when he was running. And, lies, lies, and more lies, it doesn't matter. You do one thing and say another to people's face, and that is okay.
I wonder if we could convince Chuck by a majority of requests to take up the mantle of government. I know he's retired. And
I don't know. We just have to ask Chuck.
Hey, Chuck, if you're listening, we need to talk. I'd run, but they won't allow a felon to serve in Congress. I can run legally, but here's the problem. The Senate could literally turn around and say, we're not going to allow him to sit as a senator with us. You believe that?
So it's legal for you to do it, but they could stop you from doing it if they so desired.
Right.
Or they could allow the entire thing to fill up with ex-felons or whatever. And
well, the simple truth is that all they'd have to do is go catch a couple episodes of this show, and they'd because I call them all traitors, and so that means both parties, which means they'd all be allied against me. I would have zero friends up there, which is exactly how I would want it, by the way. But
I think that Chuck Ferguson would have very few friends.
I get you.
He might get along with Cruz, okay.
Sure. Maybe Mike Lee from Utah.
Mike Lee, right?
Did you see that diatribe with Mike Lee and where both what the heck's his name, McCain and Durbin were berating him, telling him this is how it's been done for 200 years and you don't know how to operate within the Senate. No, that's exactly the problem, Mr. McCain. You have been betraying and cutting our throats for the last 200, and it's time for you to take a walk.
Right. No, I did not
walk.
see that one. It sounds like it was a repeat of the issue with Rand Paul's filibuster where he brought up the drones.
Kind of. I put a thing up on Facebook. I says, Here you can see two traitors tell Mike Lee from Utah how it's done in Congress because they don't like his assertion that the Senate is ruled by backroom closed-door deals. Lee and Cruz want a debt limit increase taken off the table.
Right.
I agree with Lee and Cruz. Increasing the debt limit is madness, regardless of protocol. The two traitors tag team Lee. How shameful and pathetic. It's business as usual that's the problem. This is a perfect example of why government needs to remove every member of federal and state government, ban them all from ever being involved again, and we start our nation again as a strict constitutional republic.
Well, that would be a nice step.
I'm advocating it in 90 days that will change the world. Put all state and federal governments under peaceful civil disobedience siege. Stop paying all taxes. No more bank payments. No more money transactions or transfers. And demand they leave and then starve the beast to death. I don't see an alternative because I don't see a political solution anywhere in the offing. With scum like these guys running the thing, they're not going to vote themselves out of power. We all know that. Mm-hmm. So I'm struggling with the idea of how we get around the roadblocks they purposely throw out on us.
Well, there are a couple of valid attempts at doing different things. The reinstitution of a proper grand jury process is one of those things. I am not certain that there's the capacity to starve the beast because they just print more money and lay claim to your goods.
Yeah, but the states can't do that. And here's the other side. If you're starving out the bankers, which, by the way, serves a dual purpose, you starve the bankers, they will apply so much pressure on the federal government that this whole thing would not be... Here's the point. I don't expect the federal government to capitulate, and I don't expect them to say, okay, we're all going to pack up our boxes of our little family pictures and take our sheepskins off the wall and put them in a cardboard box and march home. I don't expect them to do that. Mm-hmm. What I do expect is that when 20 million Americans are camping in Washington, even the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda will not be able to ignore it any longer. And America will come awake with a jolt.
Yeah, the camping in Washington I see as being effective. I just have a difficult time, Michael, believing that the monetary system, which is such an absolute fraud, can actually be used to take them out because they're the ones that control it. So,
well, yeah, yes and no. Don't forget that these people are beholden to these bankers. And that's the reason why, by the way, that the bankers will scream at Congress and yell at them. But ultimately, they'll never agree that Congress has to resign. The point being that they don't want to lose the power that they've bought and paid for. This is their prize dog they've got on a leash, and they're not going to let it go. But on the flip side of the fence, the whole idea is to get the other 285 million Americans out of the 300 million we have to come awake and aware and say, really, we do have to do something.
Well, that would, yes. I've been advocating for the rest of America to wake up for quite a while, and I have to say, actually, that people have begun to snap to.
I agree. They're coming awake and quickly, but quickly enough? I don't know.
Well, I honestly don't know that 20 years ago would have been quickly enough, Mike. The positions, as far as the control of our daily lives and the incursions upon individual liberty and individual responsibility that we've experienced, those foundations have been laid for a long time, and they don't even necessarily have to pass any more new laws. They just extrapolate their regulatory authority from a previously passed law.
Sure. Well, yeah, but I get that, but on the flip side of the fence, I don't believe that at this point we can take the Titanic and steer it, slowly but surely. Slowly I turn, step by step. I think we need an abrupt 45-degree right about face, right, or a right turn.
Right.
And the only way to accomplish that is to jolt America to awareness, because the alternative to that is we're going to get jolted to awareness. It's just going to be that the ship is going to turn hard left instead of hard right.
Yeah,
right?
well,
and I don't mean political positioning there. I just mean government wants to go the opposite way that the people want to go.
Agreed.
And if we don't jolt it to hard, and I mean a 45-degree turn, right? I mean complete hardcore right turn. Mm-hmm. And government wants to take a hardcore left turn. They're going to accomplish their goal if we don't accomplish ours first.
Right.
And they're going to do it under martial law or under the collapse of the financial institutions or under the collapse of some other, precursor or methodology that says now we have the right to declare total domination.
Okay, well, see, and the way that you and I differ on this is I see we are on the Titanic, and, 15, 20 years ago, I started thinking, my gosh, we need to take those deck chairs and start building rafts because this sucker's going down.
Well,
okay?
Yeah, and I'm 100% in agreement with you. We need to be prepared in case we do not make the turn before they do.
Right.
So I 100% agree with you there. I'm just saying that once they make their turn, now instead of a 45-degree turn, you've got a 180-degree turn you've got to make. And you're going to have to do it with bullets, not ballots. That's the problem. You see,
right.
I'm saying
I don't want to do that.
Well, right, I agree. And I'm saying, just like Winston Churchill said, fight now while you have an opportunity to do so without the loss of blood and treasure, right?
Agreed.
Because at some point in time, you may be obligated to fight when the chances of success are far slimmer. In fact, it may even become worse than that. You may have to fight when the chances of winning are zero, but it's better to die as a free man than a slave. And that's where we're at.
Right. Well,
So-
I agree that is where we're at, and I think that people need to prepare, and we have to have ourselves set up to provide a solution instead of just reacting to the crash.
Right.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the National Blueways when we come back, because you and I have both been on this thing like hobos on ham sandwiches, and I think it's important that we educate our listeners. We'll be right back, folks.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster. 1,200 extra police officers on the streets of London watching for copycat attacks like the one on a soldier Wednesday. Lee Rigby was 25 years old, hacked to death. His stepfather, Ian.
He believed life was for living, and he will be sorely missed by all who knew it.
The two suspects in custody, Muslims with Nigerian backgrounds. Another man and a woman arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder as police investigate whether this was part of a larger plot. An oversized truck bangs into an overhead span of a bridge in Mount Vernon, Washington, causing a collapse.
I saw the cars just floating in midair as if they were in zero gravity, and the bridge it just tumbled. 3 people rescued from the Skagit River. Detours are set up around that stretch of Interstate 5 linking Seattle and Vancouver, British Columbia. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Thanks to our friends over at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. You can reach Brian down there at 870-492-4030. It's located a half mile east of Walmart on 3225 Route 62, Mountain Home. My dear friend Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, the best damn bakery in 100 miles. She's located at number 2 Evans Arcade, and you can call her at 255-2253. My friends over at Pizza Hut on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. They have an outstanding lunch opportunity. You can, from 11 till 2, and you can have salad and pizza, something tasty and something good for you. Our friends Bill Stone over at Stone Construction at 293-0116. If you're considering doing any kind of remodeling, new or custom construction and or light commercial, give Bill a call and let him bid on your next project. Our friends Batteries at the Battery Station at 303 Washington Avenue, 417-257-7799. They can be found at thebatterystation.com. Our friends over at West Plains Pawn and Gun, an outstanding opportunity with 400 firearms under glass. You can reach them at 417-256-3000, and they are located at westplainspawn.com. Located physically at Highway 160, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. And finally, the sponsor of our phone lines, Wits End Classic Barbershop, located on the square in West Plains. Best haircut you can get for $10, and a nice young man as well. Please visit and support our sponsors.
If you're looking for great deals on iPads or Kindles, look no further than your neighborhood Radio Shack authorized sales center. They've got great deals on the latest iPads and Kindles. Maybe you need a new GPS or an MP3 player to get your music library ready for those barbecues. Whatever your electronic needs, stop by your local neighborhood Radio Shack authorized dealer in West Plains at 1408 Southern Hills Shopping Center or call 417-256-1819.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information, email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, a clear sky, sunny through the day, the high 72, mainly clear tonight, low 48. Tomorrow, plenty of sunshine, high 78 degrees, partly cloudy tomorrow night, low 56. Partly sunny Sunday, maybe a thunderstorm, high 78, maybe a thunderstorm Memorial Day. I'm meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
There's one man on this earth who really, truly gets it.
The nightmare, the monstrosity that is Obamacare is going to be run by the nightmare, the monstrosity that is the Internal Revenue Service. I wonder if they're going to have a determinations unit examining all Obamacare decisions. Excuse me, pathologist? Really? Well, send us some x-rays first. Oh, and, are you a member of the Tea Party?
Weeknights from 5 till 8, Mark Levin on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
All right. We have returned. So let's talk a little bit about Blueways. Before we do that, I do want to mention one issue that's going on here. There is a drive afoot for June 6th, and I want you folks to put this on your calendar. There is a marrow donor registry drive that's being done here at the radio station on June 6th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And effectively what this does is they just do a swab of the inside of your mouth to verify whether or not you match somebody who's in need of bone marrow donors or bone marrow donation. And they are going to be doing that here between 3 and 7 p.m. on Thursday, June 6th. I'm asking our listenership to be participants in that because there are a couple of folks right here in our local area that are desperately in need of a bone marrow transplant, and this would give them an opportunity. And these are young kids. I'm talking about, between the ages of 15 and 20 years old. And one of these kids, Wyatt Cooper, is a 16-year-old kid at the Reed Spring High School, but his family locally is from here. He's 16 years old. And this bone marrow transplant is the only thing that's going to enable him to continue life. And I got to tell you, it takes you about 15 minutes and a simple cheek swab that will enable you to help somebody. And so if there's any way that you can participate in that, we all ask, how can I make a difference? This is how, right? One person can make all the difference for not only this kid but many others. And I understand that people get antsy about stuff like this, but this stuff is really important. This leukemia, lymphoma, and other types of blood-borne cancers can be stopped by literally a cheek swab. And there's no skin off your nose to be in part of the registry. And if someone else in the registry can utilize your bone marrow, I encourage you to participate in that. It's June 6th, right here at the station, 3 to 7 p.m. So it's after work. There's no excuse not to be able to make it. I'm asking you folks to make sure that we're lined up around the corner to help this kid, okay? Okay, I want to talk about this Blueways thing because it is probably one of the largest land grabs that the federal government has ever done, and certainly in modern history. And it portends to be a terrible, terrible thing for the citizens of Missouri and Arkansas. Missouri-stan and Arkansas. We are being isolated, and our land use rights are being threatened in a way that we have never even considered before. This makes what happened in the old biosphere and Ozark Highlands national heritage areas look like a walk in the park.
Well, here's the thing. This is basically the same program, the same plan, the same UN control mechanisms, the same land use control mechanisms.
Same
but
people.
There's no opportunity for public comment, and there's no feasibility study that's necessary to be done.
Right.
And so it's coming by edict with 26 quote unquote stakeholder organizations that nominated 60 counties.
Yeah, and these stakeholder organizations aren't even here.
Right.
I mean, these are stakeholder organizations that are out of Washington, D.C., and this is another example of lobbyists and the global elitists buying their senatorial and buying their way into government. This Ken Salazar passed this by an executive order. I don't know who the hell Ken Salazar thinks he is, and I don't know who the Department of the Interior thinks they are, but passing an executive order by a ministry official, fiat, right,
yeah.
is makes about as much sense as giving America back to King George. I mean, really.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here you go.
Right. We just decided it's too big for us to handle. You can just take it over again.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
There's a letter from the House Western Caucus that you've put up on your website, and
right.
it's addressed to the Honorable Ken Salazar. And with all due respect, I could not call that man honorable. But it very clearly outlines that this is a massive usurpation of property rights and states' rights, and we only have a short time in which to defeat this thing. They're going to make this memorandum of understanding, which, by the way, is another euphemism for a law without actually a law, without being passed by Congress. And they're going to pass this in, July or something, right?
That's going to be the final. They've already done the initial. It's like there's an initial memorandum of understanding, and then there's the nail-in-the-coffin memorandum of understanding, like the enacting memorandum of understanding. So this isn't even being done with congressional oversight, guys. This is being done purely through the agency with no oversight of elected officials on any level, county, city, state, federal, no elected officials.
Right. No, they haven't even given Congress an opportunity to hear about this. They just did it on their own.
Right.
I mean, when you want to talk about a power grab, folks, you're talking about a power grab that grabbed a sixth of Missouri and about 20% of Arkansas.
It looks to me like it's a third of Arkansas.
I mean, I don't know how. First of all, our House and our Senate need to call an emergency session to pass. If the anti-Agenda 21 bill goes through and is signed by the governor, or not signed but passes anyway, the first thing they ought to do is call an emergency hearing to declare this Blueways to be an Agenda 21 project and void it, and then immediately file a lawsuit against the federal government and get it in court immediately and get an injunction prohibiting them from introducing this.
Right. That's one thing. Here's the deal, though. The Agenda 21 constraining legislation within the state of Missouri passed, and it's a veto-proof majority. However, it doesn't go into effect until August. And the kill date on getting this out into the public light and into the realm of the control mechanism, which this is one effective method that elected officials have to control the agencies, is through the funding. Okay, now, in the state of Missouri, and I'm sorry, but I can't find my list of all of the 26 stakeholders that nominated.
Yeah.
But in the state of Missouri, as far as government entities engaged in nomination, the Missouri Conservation Department is the only stated governmental entity within the state of Missouri. Now, Arkansas is loaded. They have a bunch of different governmental agencies acting as stakeholder nominators for the establishment of this White River Watershed National Blueway. And this is 17.8 million acres of control.
Yeah, it's 18 million people. 18 million acres is massive. Mm-hmm. Massive. We're talking about such a huge percentage of these two states that, for all intents and purposes, the Ozarks are no longer ours.
Right.
They now belong to the federal government.
And, we get to steward it for them with their permission. And they say, in their documents that they put out, they say that there are not going to be regulatory controls. However, Connecticut, which was the first established Blueway, has 864 pages of regulation going along with that non-regulatory control that they got through their National Blueway. And this is, if this happens here, it's going to take over way more privately held land, and it will destroy your ability to raise cattle on this property in the Ozarks. It will destroy your ability to plant crops. If you've got good bottom ground, you're going to have at least 100-foot backset from any intermittent, meaning a ravine, or any running stream.
Right.
You got to fence your cattle off of the water by 50 feet.
Now, what kills me is that they claim that this is a public-private partnership, which is a euphemism and a keyword for Agenda 21, right? And it's sponsored by
the U.S. fascism.
Right. Well, the U.S. FWS, which is the United States Fascist Wildlife Symposium. No, it's really the Fish and Wildlife. The U.S. ACE, which is the
Army Corps of Engineers.
The USGS in both Missouri and Arkansas, the USDA, the U.S., the National Park Service. And here's your state and local governments: the Missouri Department of Conservation, Arkansas Fish and Game, Natural Heritage, Forestry Commissions. Here's your non-governmental stakeholders. This is the 26 stakeholders. Actually, I'm going to cover this when we come back.
All right.
They tell you this is tied to local businesses. There's only 2 of them, and one of them is an LLC with only 2 employees. You're gonna, I mean, it's laughable. We'll be back in just a moment, folks. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans, and we're joined this morning by Doreen Hannes. Doreen is the purveyor of TruthFarmer.com and also the one of the major contributors to the PRCnews.org. PRCnews.org is the Property Rights Coalition organization. If you're not a member of a property rights coalition here in Missouri or Arkansas, you are actually working against us because we need your membership desperately to fight this. We'll be back in just a moment.
Most of us will agree that a toothbrush and toothpaste are very low-cost items when compared to major dental repair work. We just know that it's much less painful to maintain with good dental hygiene and checkups than let things go and see what happens. The same is true with vehicle maintenance. Following recommended fluid maintenance schedules and replacing filters before a problem develops is much more cost-efficient than dealing with a transmission or engine breakdown. Stop by or call Don's Auto Service to schedule the services recommended for your vehicle, 1618 Porter Wagner Boulevard, or 417-256-2752.
The Battery Station in West Plains is your headquarters for getting and being prepared. Natural disasters, civil unrest, personal and family protection, long-term sustenance, and most importantly, peace of mind. Berkey bottles and home-sized water purification systems, survival food, MREs, freeze-dried food, survival knives, lanterns, ammunition, military sleep system, and of course, batteries of all shapes and sizes. Take charge of your own survival and security. The Battery Station, 303 Washington and West Plains, 417-257-7799 or batterystation.com.
There's a lot going on in your financial world to keep track of. Considering buying your first home? Maybe refinancing? Have you heard about mortgage programs like HARP and Streamline Financing? Have a parent considering a reverse mortgage? You shouldn't consider doing anything until you've read these free 2013 Consumer Protection Guides from the Center for Sound Consumer Advice, Inc. These guides provide everything you'd be wise to know before you make a move. The price? Absolutely free. Just call the Center for Sound Consumer Advice at 1-800-868-9960. That's 1-800-868-9960 and simply request your free guide. The latest guides just came out and they're available right now absolutely free. Look, there's not much free in this world, but the Center for Sound Consumer Advice has put together this free series of consumer protection guides. Well, they're free at least as long as they last. Get yours today at 1-800-868-9960. That's 1-800-868-9960.
All right, we're back. So I was reading this list of stakeholders, and here's their non-governmental organizations. And folks, if you don't understand who these people are just by their name, this is the tree-hugging liberal groups that want you off all land. They want everything returned to pristine nature, and they want to come and visit it from afar, from their little city habitat, and they don't want to look at you sitting on the front porch playing your banjo. So here's who they are: Ducks Unlimited, National Wildlife Refuge Association. Listen to the names because they explain exactly who these people are. The Nature Conservancy, the Conservation Fund, Audubon, Arkansas Canoe Club. I have no idea who that is. I don't even know whether that's a legitimate organization or if it's another one of these 2-member bodies. And the Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts. The businesses that are involved, because this is a public-private partnership. This is a partnership between government and local business. Here's who they are. Greenway Equipment. You know what they sell? John Deere tractors. By the way, if you own a John Deere tractor and your dealer is a Greenway dealer, drive your tractor over there and tell him he can take it back, because Greenway Equipment is a major sponsor of this thing, and they are, I guess it's like a loosely affiliated with John Deere in terms of it's a what do you call that? Franchise. The other one is G&G Irrigation. I looked G&G Irrigation up. It's a 2-man organization. 2-man. It's probably Mr. David Graves, the owner, and his wife. And so this is the extent. Now, remember, they're taking over 18 million acres. That's almost the equivalent of a whole state. And their public company partners are Greenway Equipment and a guy and his wife. I mean, that's how they. People, if you don't realize
support,
right? Broad support, right? I mean, it's not like they've got, I mean, if they had Bass Pro on there or something, you might say, oh, okay, what has Bass Pro got to do with this? But when you got a guy and his wife, G&G Irrigation, and I got to wonder, what they got paid off to do, or what board they sit on in Audubon or the Nature Conservancy, because that's probably what it is. Mm-hmm. G&G Irrigation sits on one of the boards of these non-governmental organization groups, and then he says, okay, well, we'll put our company up to give you some cover.
Well, what I think it likely is that he sees a potential to make some money by taking feed from, some kind of water, like a spring-fed pond or something, and irrigating from that to a watering trough for cattle.
Well, that and/or they've promised him contracts,
right,
in replacement for his endorsement.
Exactly. This is always one hand washing the other. Whenever you look at these kinds of things and you see all of these NGOs, there is something that they are going to gain financially from their participation. It is invariable that
follow the money.
Yes, it's always follow the money, and it always comes down to controlling you, controlling your ability to profit from your labor and provide for your family.
Yep.
And, this is the thing that is vastly different about this is that there isn't even a nod to public knowledge, public oversight, public input, nor elected official knowledge, oversight, or input into this establishment of a complete control by the Department of Interior, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, the United States Department of Agriculture, and the President's office.
And they're not even pretending to
and
offer
the EPA,
that now.
I forgot.
They used to at least try to give you the comfort zone that somebody was looking over their shoulder and keeping up on this.
Right.
They don't even care that you don't.
You're not getting a say.
Right.
In what is going to be placed upon you in an area of control. And it is in violation of NEPA, which is a federal act, to allow local areas to be addressed on conservation issues that may be taken up at the federal level. It's in violation of several federal laws. NEPA, and let me see what's the other, and even the Clean Water Act.
Yeah, not to mention.
So the Clean Water Act, which they tried to do the Clean Water Restoration Act, and thankfully that wasn't able to get through at the federal level. However, what's happened is that the state equivalent agencies, through contracting methods with the EPA, they're putting them in under the radar because not very many people at all are watching their state regulatory and interagency guidance documents, Mike.
Right.
And how can you? This entire thing is government through soft law. There's an extrapolation of authority that the agencies take upon themselves. The legislature continues to fund these bloody agencies, and the agencies then enact new regulations, have interguidance documents that establish a working relationship between all of the agencies and themselves to achieve their initiatives and guidelines. And this is going to destroy agriculture within this 60-county area here.
Right. And I have to tell you, this isn't the only one. There's that one in Connecticut. There's another one that they just announced that's going to be up in Indiana. And it covers an area that's about, 25 or 30 miles across.
Right.
On the bottom of the, what the heck is the lake off Chicago? Lake Erie. No, not Erie.
Michigan.
Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And so it covers 25 miles across the bottom of Lake Michigan and then about 25 miles down. So it's this giant chunk. It includes Gary, Indiana. I don't know what are they going to do, bulldoze the whole city? There ain't nothing left of it anyway. I'm not disputing the fact that there's not much left in
Gary, Indiana.
Gary, Indiana.
Well, it doesn't smell so bad anymore, but there's no steel production either.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, when we're talking about these initiatives, you have to realize, folks, what we're talking about. They are taking over entire swaths of the country that is going to be turned into pristine wilderness. The only problem is that the people who want to come to visit the pristine wilderness and turn this into a giant Six Flags adventure park are going to fly here on Learjets, right? And they're going to wear LL Beans with the creases still in them because, and the problem is they want to come here and spend a little bit of time here, but they don't want you here.
They don't want you to live here, and they don't want you to be able to make a living here.
Right. Well, if they can cut your living, then they can kick you out. See, if they can eliminate your ability to make a living, then you're forced to migrate, mass migration, which, by the way, is oftentimes actually referred to as genocide in a national arena, or in an arena where you're talking about nation states. Mass migration is the goal. Mass migration out of these greenways, blueways areas, and redirect you to some other, and because of the fact that you're going to be mass migrated out, they know that you're not going to migrate to more other rural areas. You're going to migrate to places where you can go get work, right? So you're going to migrate to what? Cities and larger communities. So the people here might migrate off to Springfield or off to Poplar Bluff or off to Cape Girardeau. And the idea is that what you do is you force population out of these mega zones of pristine wilderness, and it will start by the forced migration of, economics. It'll end by the forced migration at the point of a gun when you're the last few stragglers who haven't left because you're willing to tough it out and hard scrabble, in the hard scrabble Ozarks. And the ultimate goal is the removal of all persons from these areas and allow them to become pristine. This is Agenda 21.
Well, it's, this is tied to incentivizing environmental justice, okay? They'll make you be environmentally friendly by not allowing you to breathe within this area on a regular basis.
Right.
Now, here's the larger concern, Mike. I mean, this is affecting us directly, but it's for all watersheds in the United States. All watersheds.
Did you hear that, people? All.
That means wherever you live, because every place is a watershed to something.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
I mean, unless you live in the Mojave Desert, okay, you're a watershed and you have water underground in the aquifers that supply something else.
Right.
So, I mean, the basic idea is, and this is how it plays straight into Agenda 21. Migrate people out of the rural parts of the country, force them into enclaves that are, hubs of population, and leave these humongous swaths, state-sized areas that are complete and pristine and isolated, so that they have an opportunity to then turn that back into, natural pristine wilderness.
Exactly.
And that's the whole goal. And
it's the Wildlands Project, which also in the thing that I posted a little bit earlier on PRC News is addressed there. And there are maps associated with this. There are going to be very few, very limited, and very controlled areas that are set aside for human habitation. And, I mean, it's effectively the way that I term it, because I'm so involved in animal agriculture, is they're people CAFOs, which are concentrated animal feeding operations, that they're going to allow. And then every city is to have a buffer zone around it in which agricultural activity may occur. And that buffer zone is supposed to feed the entire city, Michael. Okay? This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a legitimate and well-documented plan that is in effect, and we have to beat this Blueways thing here by July, Mike.
By July, ladies and gentlemen. All effort, all hands on deck. Battle stations. Battle stations. Whoop, whoop, whoop,
And we can do it, and I'm going to be posting a bunch of information on prcnews.org, and we have to get this information to our county commissioners
Thank
and
you,
get
dear.
the media on it.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow morning, folks.
The Ozarks Best News Talk, KBMV Birch Tree.